been wanting to do this video for quite some time because there is a difference between the reeds that you make for Laubin oboes and the ones you would make for Laubin oboes. Now, I've played most of my career on Laubin oboes. The reeds for them, they have to be a little different. They really should be made from cane that's a little bit more vibrant. They have to vibrate from the very tip. They're not really quite as hard, or resistant as reeds for Laubin oboes that many people play, which work fine in Laubin oboes, but they really don't work very well in Laubins. We'll see if we can't briefly make a reed here that will work well. Interestingly enough, that if you make a reed like this for a Laubin, it'll work perfectly well in a Laubin oboe. It'll probably work better than the reeds that you would normally make. Measure, so we can get close. Let's see where. Okay. Now it's a good idea to define the tip, so that we know where it starts. But with this reed, the cane should be more vibrant. The gouge should be not too strong. And this way, it'll vibrate perfectly for the Laubin oboe. And when you begin the reed, you want it to have a lot of rattle, a lot of vibration. It's really helpful. So let's see if I can get that. That's what we have. Very simply, quickly and simply. Yeah. I believe this is oleo cane with my gouge, or one of my gougers. And it does. It vibrates quite a bit. And there's still, there's a lot of cane on that. It's not thin, but it vibrates well, and that's a good sign. That's a good start. A little more definition. See, now the edge is nice and sharp. When my edge gets dull in the knife, I usually go to a diamond stone and get the burr back, and then I'll finish it with the ceramic, and boy, does that get a nice sharp edge. But if you have a new knife, you don't want to use a diamond stone. You just want to use the ceramic. Just use the hard stone, because you don't want to ruin the edge, ruin the blade before you've even used it. And usually just ceramic is fine. So that's really vibrating a lot. And I'm going to remove some of the back just to get it out of there. There's a long scrape. Let's see if we can trim it to length. So it's close to a C. It's like a sharp B. It's almost a C. Let's see what we have here. And I like it to be around 71 by the time I'm done clipping for that C. It doesn't always do it, but that's pretty close. Alright, so we're going to need a little more definition, I think. Maybe some like most reeds, I may have said this before, it's really the gouge. You respond to the gouge, you react to the gouge, or as Mac would say, you scrape according to the gouge. And as a young player, I really never knew what that meant. Well, I understand it now. When you scrape the reed, it's not about what you want to impart on the reed. It's more about how the reed reacts to your scraping, That's going to determine where you're going to scrape it. A formulaic approach will only get you about 30%. Oh my God, what are they doing up there? My kids. Noisy, noisy. So once you've defined it pretty well, let's see if we can get it up to C. Then we're going to focus on the corners. Yeah, this is coming along pretty well. Then we want to focus on the corners. This is one of those things that you've seen in a book about thinning the corners a lot. I consider this to be old school reed making. Very important. And, I did make a video about that book some years ago, and a lot of people have looked at it, but it really wasn't very accurate according to the way the author made the reeds. And so, because I was approaching it from hard cane. But when you have cane that vibrates really well, it's not hard, it has a nice gouge, you approach it differently. You scrape it differently. Let's see if we can impart a little tone in this thing. I think we're very close. I don't know what is going on up there. Alright, so not strong definition. It's more about blending, more about thinning the corners, and not a lot about taking a great deal from the back. It's just very, very simply made. And it vibrates very well. I'm sure I'll have to clip it. We will clip it and hopefully get it reasonably close. That's better. It plays pretty well. And in most cases I would say, well, just leave it overnight. Just let it sit on its own. Because when you try to finish a reed in one sitting, oftentimes you do away with things that you would like to have the next day. And so it's always a good idea to let it sit overnight, because it will change a bit. And I'm just focusing on the corners here. And because they need to be made a little thinner than you would probably like in most cases, but it actually is very good for the reed. For this style reed, anyway. Yeah, this reed plays pretty well. And it's a little flat. It is playing well, and we'd have to let it set overnight. Reeds for Laubin oboes, they really need to vibrate from the tip. And that's an imperative. they can't be vibrating from the back of the tip. You know, when you define the back of the tip right in this area, like strong definition, it forces the reed to vibrate from back here and less from up here. So the reed is actually flapping from a further distance, and you get that kind of quality tone. Whereas when the reed vibrates from the very tip through to the back, you don't get that flappiness. You don't get that, what I would refer to as a duckiness in the tone. And it's more fluid. The sound is more fluid and less slap. The reed doesn't slap as much. For when you get into this real strong definition, the reed has a tendency to slap. And you can see that this is pretty well blended in this area. There's not a lot of strong definition. This is important for this style reed. You focus on the corners. Alright, let's play it, see what we have. So this reed plays very, very well. I don't know if you can hear it, but it articulates really nicely and plays beautifully and vibrates. It's effortless to play it, and it's because mostly of the gouge and the cane, but the way I made the reed is you focus more on the corners of the tip. You know, the back is kind of for tone, as a colleague used to say to me, really quite a remarkable player, would say the tone is in the ribs. And what I like about this reed is that it's just easy to play. There's no resistance. It's very free. You can get around the instrument, you know, effortlessly. And it has a lovely tone, and its articulation is very crisp, very clean. This is the kind of reed that is really good for Laubin oboes. It just plays all the notes very easily. So this is something that you should probably strive for when you play a Laubin oboe, one of Paul's instruments. Much better for the instrument. It just plays beautifully. Of course, the gouge is my gouge, which is exceptional, and the shape is my EV tip, which, boy, every time I use this shape, I like it more and more. It's so well suited. It has all the beautiful tone characteristics. It just makes reeds, one after the other. Give it a shot. Think about the corners as being thinner. A little more blend, maybe, and in the back for tone, and you will have a marvelous reed for the Laubin oboe. Good luck with that.